You can't trust the Bible. It was written by men.
Yeah, kinda.
What do you mean, kinda?
Well, God wrote it using humans as pens.
That doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
That's your answer? Okay.
Yeah, if it doesn't make sense to you, that doesn't negate reality.
Well, how do you know that it was written by God?
How many people do you think wrote the Bible?
A lot, like more than 12.
It was actually over 40.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So that proves my point even more.
No, it actually refutes your stance when you understand.
Okay, then go ahead and explain it to me.
Well, do you know how long it took to write the Bible?
Yeah, it was written over a course of like 300 years from the time of Jesus' death up until like Nicaea.
No, that's absolutely not correct.
Then what was it?
Well, you're thinking of the New Testament, which was written fully within 70 years of Jesus' death and resurrection.
Okay, yeah, that's not very long.
Yeah, but when you consider the Old Testament, it's very long.
What do you mean?
Well, the Old Testament was completed over 400 years before Jesus came.
Okay.
And that is where the majority of the authorship comes from.
So what do you mean?
Well, the Bible contains 66 different books. 39 of those are in the Old Testament. So 39 of those were written before Jesus came. And then 27, the New Testament, those were written after Jesus' resurrection.
Okay, so then they just added more 400 years later?
Kind of, except it's only one completed work.
How?
Well, the Bible only has one author, which is God, but it has over 40 different writers, which were men.
Yeah, you mentioned that, but it doesn't make any sense on how you can come to that conclusion.
Well, see, all 66 different books of the Bible have one singular continuous narrative.
Okay, so they wrote about the same thing?
Yeah, which is not possible.
How isn't that possible? It's just people who conspired to write even more of it.
Actually, no, that's what is so incredibly impressive and impossible about Scripture.
How?
Well, you know how you mentioned the time frame that it took for the Bible to be written?
Yeah?
What if I told you that the entire Bible took between 1500 and 2000 years to write all 66 books?
See, that's an insane amount of time. And like, why is it dating between 1500 and 2000? Why is that so broad for 500 years?
Well, because various Bible scholars, they will date the book of Job to be around 2000 BC. But then there's some people who traditionally date the book to be around 1500, 1300, something that's less old. So that's why there's that distinction between the two, even though like the Mesopotamian documents that we have as like an extra biblical documentation regarding Job, those are from around 2000 BC.
Okay, that's pretty crazy.
Then the Torah was written around 1400, 1500 BC within that century.
And the rest of it?
Well, the rest of the Old Testament was written in the next 1,000 years up until 400 BC.
Okay, but still, they could have just been conspiring to create it over a very long period of time.
Except the problem with that is that those 40 different authors were from 3 different continents.
So?
So you know how we have airplanes today?
Yeah.
They didn't have those. It was not common for people to travel, let alone traveling extremely long distances.
Okay, that actually makes sense.
Further than that, the Bible was written in 3 different languages.
3?
Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic.
Interesting.
Especially when you consider that in the Old Testament, which was predominantly written in Hebrew, occasionally they would have phrases or different names in Aramaic, but they're being written by people who did not speak Aramaic.
Very interesting.
But what's most amazing about the Bible is the prophecies.
Prophecies?
The Bible contains over 2,500 verifiably fulfilled prophecies.
That's a lot.
Yes, but what that means is that the Bible accurately predicted the future, which is not possible, let alone it is not possible to do that 2,500 times.
Okay, but how many times did it get a prophecy wrong?
0.
0? Come on.
The Bible has a 100% prophetic accuracy rate. It literally has 0 false prophecies.
And what were those prophecies about?
Well, they range to a lot of different subjects, but there were over 300 just about Jesus.
But weren't those written after Jesus?
No, so once again, the Old Testament was completed by 400 BC. And so all of these prophecies about Jesus, they date between 400 BC and going all the way back to potentially 2000 BC, where it's going all the way back to the very root of the Bible being written. So throughout all that time frame was when all those prophecies were written about Jesus, and then they were fulfilled by Jesus.
Wait, so you're telling me that one man fulfilled over 300 prophecies?
Yes, and it's mathematically impossible for a single man to fulfill even 8 of those prophecies.
But couldn't those prophecies have been like self-fulfilled? Like he read the prophecies and then he intentionally did things to make them come true?
That could be a valid argument, except many of those prophecies were things that were done to him against his will by people who had never read the prophecies.
Like what?
Like in Psalm 22, written over 1,000 years before Jesus came, this predicted that during the crucifixion, that the guards there are going to be gambling over his clothing.
But it was the Torah-reading Jews who did that.
No, it was the Roman guards who had never read the Old Testament.
Okay, that's interesting.
The Bible predicts a crazy amount of stuff.
I see that.
So what makes the Bible impossible and evidence that God is the one who wrote it is that it was written over a course of 2,000 years by over 40 different authors from a multitude of different countries, 3 different continents, in 3 different languages. When it all came together, it all said the same thing, and it contained over 2,500 verifiably fulfilled prophecies. That is not possible.
Okay, so yeah, there might actually be something to this.
Yeah, read it and you'll become a Christian.